Hi, and welcome to Friday, April the 17th. I'm Michael Bean, and this is today's Confidence on Camera lesson. Today, we're talking to casting director Tiffany Mack. So I'm going to quickly review for you where the casting director is, just so you have a context for her questions and context for the questions that you might want to ask. The producer is in charge of the money. You know, there might be one, there might be 11 of them. The director is in charge of the story. The casting director, which we're going to talk to today, is in charge of the auditions, in charge of who comes in for the auditions, who gets to audition, in charge of sending out information about the auditions to talent agents, and then taking the submissions and choosing who to see. So that's her only job. The talent agents are in charge of the actors. They're basically professional salespeople or marketing people whose job it is, to help actors get auditions. Then the actors are in charge of myself. As an actor, you're always in charge of yourself and your own materials. So just so you know who you're talking to today, you're talking to a casting director. And so the relevant questions for her are going to be the ones about auditions. How many people do you bring in? When you see people who are like me, what do you look for? Feel free to ask questions that are specifically relevant to you, because here's your chance to talk to a casting director. Now, I teach both kids and teens and adults, and so we've got a mix of both, and there's going to be a mix of both watching this. I know that can be an unfamiliar environment, and we're still getting used to it, but really the basic ideas are the same, and the fact that it's a mixed group just means that I'm not going to swear, probably. But if Tiffany does, be prepared. When we get to the questions part, I'm going to prioritize questions from folks who are here for the lessons this week, and then we'll take questions from absolutely anybody. If we're getting towards the end of the session and we haven't heard your question yet, or it looks like we're only going to have a chance for a few questions, then please throw your question in the chat window so we can quickly scan over them, and maybe there's something really important that we're forgetting to ask her and we've only got her for half an hour. So just pulling up her IMDb page right now, share screen. I was showing Lincoln the in production list on Creative BC earlier. You can see that everything's listed as temporarily suspended, hiatus, etc. Here's Tiffany Mack. So up top in IMDb always, some of the most talked about projects. She cast All the Boys I've Loved Before and the sequel or sequels. She did Canadian casting for them. Pieces of Her, Canadian casting, Babysitter's Club, Canadian casting. This one was casting very recently. Movies, the Siren TV series. So there's a bunch of these TV series that have been showing up lately, that she's been taking on lately. Project Blue Book, Motherland. I don't know if Motherland has come out yet. Has anybody seen it? It's a locally cast and shot show about witches. And if you scroll back far enough, you can really get a sense of the whole trajectory of her career. Because if we go all the way down here, then we get a few miscellaneous crew. We've got key production assistant. So looks to me like she started as a production assistant. Then she got work as the casting associate, which we see up here, right? So right from 2007, key production assistant to casting assistant, License to Wed, Good Luck Chuck, Fallen, Bionic Woman. Then, if I remember right, Tiffany went to work for Insight Films and did a whole bunch of in-house casting for them. And then broke off on her own maybe a decade ago. So she's cast a bunch of stuff, and it's listed in a number of different places here, because of the way the credits are. But there looks like there's 200 and something credits here, and some of them are TV shows. And so it lists up here as one credit, but it is 6 episodes or 17 episodes. So there's your little glimpse into the life of Tiffany Mack. She may even be here by now. Let's find out. There she is, Tiffany 1 in the bottom corner. So I'm unmuting everyone.
Hello.
Tiffany Mack!
Woo! How are you?
We're here.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi. I see some familiar faces.
Uh,
Good to see. How are you guys?
We're having a good day so far.
Yeah,
I'm going to remute everyone, so that we don't hear anybody vacuuming or their dogs barking.
sounds good. Wow. There's like a way to automatically mute everybody?
There is, yeah, it's a hotkey. Or you
Whoa.
can find it in the mute button. I've learned so much about Zoom. If you are ever interested in getting all the notes, you just call me and I'll tell you
Yeah,
everything I've
that's
learned in the last
amazing.
3 weeks.
The last workshop that we did was the first time I did Zoom, and then my assistant's birthday was on the weekend, so I plotted like a whole Zoom
Ah,
surprise birthday brunch for her, and it's hard to figure out, but like it's pretty user friendly. I like being able to change the backdrops.
if I don't, you probably already know this, but in the top right corner of your window, you'll see like 9 little squares. If you click that, it goes to
Yeah,
gallery view, and then you'll be able to see all the faces of the
yeah,
people.
I just changed that. I like seeing it Brady Bunch style. I think it's easier to see
Oh,
everybody that way.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's great.
The uh, where would you like to start today? I'm happy to ask questions, but my first thought was just to get you, like I usually do, talking about your work life and what it usually looks like. Uh-oh, I think you've just muted yourself by accident.
Myself. There we go. Yeah, I might have. Um, yeah, I guess I'll just give you guys a brief intro about myself, and then you guys can ask me any questions that you like. And I always say I never lie to you, so I won't sugarcoat anything. I try to abstain from swearing. But I think it's important that you guys know what you're kind of getting into, and that you guys are going into acting for the right reasons. More and more, I'm seeing my producers wanting to meet people's parents, meaning their guardians, their family, before hiring kids and teens on big roles. Just want to make sure that you guys are happy doing what you're doing. Make sure that you guys are, healthy and having a lot of fun. Um, so I started about 12 years ago. Sorry. Hi, Mom. Mom, you are in front of an entire class of kids. Hi. Look at my mom. I told her not to crash the class today, and there she is. She's been staying with me for the last few days. So I started about 12 years ago working for Korean Mayers and Heike Brandstatter, who are a couple of pretty big casting directors in town. They've done all the X-Men movies. They did Supernatural forever and ever. They've been doing it since the X-Files, the original X-Files. I think some of you guys probably weren't even born yet when that came out. So they've been around for about 30 years or so. I worked for them for 2 years and then moved from them to Insight Film Studios, which is now known as Odyssey Media. And they do a lot of the super low budget monster sci-fi movies, the Lifetime movies that didn't have much of a budget. And it was a really interesting way to cut my teeth. I went from being a casting assistant to a casting associate to casting director there. So I was a casting assistant at Korean and Heike's, then became a casting associate to casting director at Insight. So the main difference is when you're the casting assistant, it's a critical role. I mean, you're the foundation of the office. You're the one who's kind of keeping the engine moving still. You're doing a lot of the paperwork, a lot of the scheduling. Every time an actor comes in and thanks me for doing a time change for their audition, I go, nope, go and thank Heather outside. She's the one who did that. So it's just sort of keeping the wheels greased. When you become a casting associate, you're basically like a junior casting director. So you start getting to run your own sessions and doing the offers and negotiations for some of the smaller roles that we do. So far I don't have a casting associate yet, but that's sort of the next step for people to go to after a casting assistant. And then a casting director, then it's my name on the credit. I'm the one who's picking everybody for auditions, and from A to Z, I guess it's all the steps I have to take. So I'm the one who's auditioning everybody, negotiating everybody, putting everyone forward, and fighting for people.
And just in case some of the folks listening in, most people probably have context, for what that is, but if you could just give us the sort of extremely abbreviated version, of what it looks like sort of once you're hired, by the producer director and given a copy of the script.
Yeah, sure. So the producer will email me out of the blue and say, checking your availability for the next 4 months. And I will hopefully be available if it's a TV show. If it's a feature, they might say, just checking your availability for the next 6 weeks or the next 8 weeks. If we're able to work out a deal, they'll send me over a script. Actually, they'll send me over a script before we work out the deal. Once I get the script and I agree to be a part of the show, then we start breaking down all of the characters. So I have to make a list of every single character that's going to be an actor, everything from the leads down to the non-speaking actor roles. I write out a breakdown that's a detailed description of every single role that I have to look for. I get approval from the producers, the director, the studio, the network. to release the breakdown, which isn't as quick as you would think. Sometimes there's sometimes like a 72-hour, 96-hour turnaround between me setting my first breakdown and me getting it published, just with the number of people who have to approve it. And then it goes out to all the agents in the city, or sometimes all the agents in the country, and they will go through every single role one by one and go, oh, so-and-so would be great for this. So-and-so would be great for this. And they submit everyone on the roster who they think would be appropriate for all the roles that I have. So from there, I always say that the number of submissions I get are kind of like a triangle. So for the lead roles, there's really only so many people who are kind of qualified or right or have the resume for lead roles. So I have maybe this many submissions. Then when you get down to like cop number 2, male or female, 20s to mid-30s, open ethnicity, it gets down to like 300 submissions. But in terms of the number of people I'm going to see, it's actually almost like an inverse triangle. So I'm going to see a lot of people for the leads because I'm trying to find as many qualified good people as possible. And by the time that I get down to like cop number 1, cop number 2, I have my favorites. I have the people that I go to quite frequently. So I'll probably see 6 people, maybe 12 people for those roles. So I might see like 60 people for the leads and then see like 10 to 12 people for cop number 2. But I got more submissions for the leads less submissions for the leads and more submissions for cop number 2. So it's kind of inversely difficult to get into the room based on the number of submissions. So from there, I'll make my short list after I've done my auditions. We'll do, say, a week of auditions, and I'll send them my favorites, usually my favorite 4 to 6 people for each role. And I'll wait for the producers and the director to weigh in on who their favorites are. And from there, we'll decide whether we need to do callbacks or if we can send people on for studio and the network approval. So sometimes people wonder, like after I do my audition, how long can it take until I hear back? It could take a day. It could take literally months. Especially now. Now it's going to take months. There are people who auditioned for me on March 12th who will not hear back until, I don't know, August to find out that their audition went well. So there's really no rhyme or reason about it. It can be, maybe I have 5 producers and a director, and I'm waiting for all 5 producers to hear back from before I can go to the next level, and everyone needs to have a consensus. So it can be really quick, it can be really short. So there's no logic behind it.
One of the things that everybody's speculating about, is what's going to happen with casting in quarantine. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the ideas that you and your folks are tossing around, or what you're hearing people talk about?
I mean, I think the self-tapes are going to become more and more popular now, which I'm okay with. I like watching self-tapes, but to be honest, it's like the fun part of my job is getting to be doing auditions with actors. That's what I like. So I hope that there's a way that the technology and the resources can make us do something like this, do a Zoom audition. I think that would be great. I think the biggest difficulty with Zoom is, 1, making sure that everybody's Wi-Fi is up to snuff, making sure that it's really smooth and it's running fluidly. 2, making sure that the actor has a reader on their side. I mean, I could probably Zoom in my reader to read with you, but then it becomes, 3 different channels and 3 different levels of Wi-Fi connectivity that can go wrong. But I think that Zoom, I think that Zoom auditions would be fantastic. And it's the best way that we can interact with each other. That's what I like. I mean, it's very rare that someone will book something off their first self-tape. And sometimes when it gets to, principal roles and actor roles, I feel badly if I'm asking people to retape for an actor role with a note or retape for a principal role. So those opportunities to do retakes are best done in the room, where I don't have to waste somebody's time to go and set up a self-tape twice or 3 times.
Just for a single line.
So I hope that there's a way that we can figure out how to do Zoom auditions. Do you have any suggestions there?
Yes, it's actually pretty straightforward. It just requires a little bit of education. I don't know what it would be like to try and educate people like sort of 300 at a time on the day, like that.
Yeah.
Could get tiring, but you could say like, watch this video. If you screw this up technically, we're just going to end your audition and move on to the next person immediately.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like you do something like that. But basically, if you scooch to one side of the screen and you pin somebody else's video so they're big and you have them on the other side of the screen, then you can look into their eyes just the way that you would in a real audition.
Totally.
And whoever's running the session can choose who they're going to pin and record only that person.
Yeah.
So it's actually like if you and your reader had good connectivity,
Yeah.
then the actors, you just have to veto them. You'd have to be like, watch this video. If your Wi-Fi is laggy or you haven't done these technical things that I've asked you to do, we're going to end your session with no apologies immediately and move on to the
Yeah.
next person. Yeah, and then there's gives
Yeah,
you
but it's true. I mean, that's exactly how it needs to go.
totally, and then
Would you
Zoom gives you
suggest that having my reader Skype in
pardon
or
me.
Zoom in? Would you recommend that having my reader Zoom in? So I would be a
Yes,
window, my reader and the actor would be a window.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a great idea.
as
I
long
would
as
love to do that.
I think it's very, very doable. We had Candice Elzinga come in last week and say something really similar. That she was like, "Gosh, like, could we figure out how to do sessions by Zoom?"
Yeah, it would be wonderful.
Because
Even now, it's hard because like the writers are still writing. I'm still getting scripts for my shows that are supposed to be going to camera in July. Everyone is still doing whatever prep they can, getting ready for the summer. And I worry that until we figure out an industry approved way of doing auditions, it is going to be insane when we come back.
right,
you know and I've had two different projects now going. We haven't really gotten the sign off to have a casting director work for April, but we'd love if someone was working for April to get self-tapes or do Zoom auditions for a Nickelodeon feature that they want to start doing later on this year. They would love to be doing Zoom auditions if everybody has the same type of the same caliber of technology. But right now, because they're worried that no one's really tested it and found it to be as reliable across the board,
Mhm.
they just didn't engage me for April.
the
It's too bad.
okay, well,
Yeah.
for your next pitch, I'm happy to help you out if I can be a resource with like.
Yeah, absolutely. The cool thing
Um,
is I feel like you guys here who are zooming in, like you guys are used to doing this now, right? Like with your school, you
yes,
guys are used to zooming into everything. So, it's gonna be people who are like in my age bracket and older who are gonna be figuring everything out. But I feel like you guys are already really savvy. You guys know your eye lines, you guys know your Wi-Fi is strong. I guess all of your Wi-Fi has to be strong right now to be Skyping into or to be zooming into school.
now
So I think the transition's pretty easy.
I think the folks who are joining us are trying to be ahead of the curve, on Zoom and on self-tape auditions. Before we open it up to questions from everybody,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about self-tape auditions, and what you like to see in one when you're like, yeah, oh, this is a quality one, kind of what stands out for you?
Good lighting is important. It's so weird. I never thought that would be the forefront of my mind, but
I keep
a
saying
lot
it
of
on
the time
Mondays.
yeah, really. I mean, it's true. Sometimes I'll see, first of all, I have no problem if people self-tape at home. I mean, yes, if you're going to get coach, then go and self-tape with your coach. But self-taping at home on your iPhone or your Android is totally fine as long as it is horizontal, not portrait. Horizontal, blank wall, white is fine, but blue or gray or green is better. But, white is totally acceptable. But good lighting, something where I can see your face and see your eyes and the emotions that you guys are doing. A lot of people will sit by a window, so it'll be half their face is lit and the other half is in the shadows, or they'll be sitting in what looks like a windowless dim, it almost looks like a motel room where it's just like an orange haze. Like we're trying to show you in the best light literally possible, so be very cognizant of that. Anywhere where you can have bright natural lighting, that's what you guys should do. Like I'm looking at all of your guys lighting right now, and I think the lighting environment you guys are in are all good. I think maybe bottom left corner with the hat might be a little bit dark, but I think the wall would be fine. Even like the painting behind it, you'll probably take that down, otherwise use that. But just make sure you're finding your light. Like Aiden, if you see how Aiden, your face is kind of towards the sun on the right side of your face, you gotta turn it towards the light. That's your best light. Does that make sense?
This is what I've been telling people in our camera day, is to put whatever their recording device is in front of a large window. So there's like a big
Yeah,
window directly behind the camera, like diffuse natural light, and then
totally,
a blank, non-distracting background.
totally.
And
Yeah,
it's astounding.
natural
Like
light
when
is
somebody
made
does it, even
like,
for class, it's like that person looks so magical right now. Like I
oh,
want
big
to watch
time.
them more.
Yeah. Yeah. Natural light is like nature's Photoshop. It's like nature's filter. It's like everyone looks just like a little bit smoother, a little bit brighter. So that's all you need. You guys don't even need to spend that much money on it. So that's the first thing I look for. Then I look for a good reader is pretty important. I've definitely seen a lot of self-tapes that have gone sideways because of a reader who's particularly either too over the top or too monotone. So if you know, even if you guys are making friends with your other classmates in acting class, these are resources for you to have a self-tape partner from now on. You know, if it's not Michael, then actually having one of your fellow students you've hit it off with or one of your acting buddies help you out for your self-tapes, like do it.
Especially if they could zoom in,
Yeah,
the technology
exactly.
is easy now.
Yeah, exactly. So they're having a good reader, just because you don't want your reader to distract from your performance, either from being too big or from giving you nothing. So you want a reader who's like a 6 or 7 out of 10, like a pretty neutral reader. Then I look for good frame and good eyeline. So to me, a good frame for an audition would be like chest up. Like when we're doing auditions in my room, we are pretty much just chest up. We start pretty wide, like waist up, and then we zoom into here. So I think if you go chest up for your auditions, make sure the angle's okay. Like right now, my computer's kind of lower, but in theory, your angle should be so the camera is about eye level to you. So you should raise up your camera, make sure it's about eye level to you, and then it should be about chest up there. So I think something like this would be fine.
Perfect.
Try not to shoot from too much from below, although I guess with technology limitations and what you can do with your computer, your camera, you have to make it work.
Put it on a stack of books or a cardboard
Yeah,
box.
put it on a stack of books. I guess, you know,
Like,
fun books or
doesn't
whatever.
have to look pretty. Just only what the camera looks at.
Yeah, exactly. So the angle is important, eyeline's important, because like Michael's saying, you know, like if you have your computer camera here, but say if you're placing your reader somewhere over here, I don't just want to be looking at your profile the whole time. From this, now I've lost your eyes completely. So something that's a little bit to the 11 o'clock or the 1 o'clock of your camera would be ideal.
I'm going to show this to the students when I'm teaching camera technique, just so that I can get you saying it and not me saying it. Because I think when you say it, they'll actually listen a little bit more intently.
I hope so. I mean, the thing with self tapes are that, if I was being brutally honest, if the aesthetic or the performance of your self tape hasn't gotten our attention in the first 20 or 30 seconds, we may not watch the whole thing if we have a bunch. You know, I think that's the honest truth. I know now I'm recording and on record saying it, but it's true. So you have to make sure that the technical aspects are strong. If we get thousands of self tapes in, that's kind of the first weeding process. Is if you haven't captured our eye, we may not have the attention span to keep watching.
Now, given that a chunk of that first 30 seconds is likely to be somebody's slate, would you advise putting their slate at the very end then?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's something that's I'm not particular with, but I've heard a lot of people say they don't want to see the actor out of character until after the self-tape's over. So I think that it's worthwhile, just in general, to put your slate at the end, so they see you in character off the top.
We're coming up to our last 10 minutes. So y'all can like throw your hands in the air, or you can use Zoom has a great like raise hand function. You'll find it in your participants window near the bottom. It just raise hand, and then it'll stay there, and you don't have to wait until your arm gets tired. So do you have questions for Tiffany about anything that she's just talked about, or the whatever is on your casting minds? Josh.
Yeah.
So sometimes casting directors know that an actor is good at acting at one kind of particular role. So what can actors do to break the mold and prevent getting typecast?
So I don't keep seeing you for bully roles?
No. That's not the bully role. It's great.
And congratulations, by the way. I don't know if you guys know that Josh actually had a really big role in the main event that just came out on Netflix last week. It was my wrestling movie on Netflix with WWE. I think that in general, just have your agent submit you and say, hey, like he's actually a really nice kid. He wants to stretch his wings a little bit. So, but I think in general for kids and teens, you guys have it a bit easier than adults, because there are very few kids and teens who are skilled enough to like be off book and be really prepared and, have that confidence and make choices that I'm likely to see you for a huge range of things. And you're less likely to get typecast than your adult counterpart may. But I think in general, like when we know that a kid or an actor is a good actor, we'll see them for everything.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Grace and Isla.
Hi, guys.
Hi. How important is the microphone when you're doing the self-tape?
That's important. Sometimes and something that could make us just skip a self-tape is, audio's too quiet. We can't hear them. Next. And if it's an actor we know, we might email their agent to ask them to retape or to boost their audio. But sometimes if we have a ton of people, we would just go, next. next. So audio is very important.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, Taylor.
Taylor, great. Uh-oh.
Would rather prefer.
It's something that I'm indifferent to, but it was actually another casting director who gave like, oh, you know, I just don't like seeing slates off the top. So maybe it's later. I don't even know if it's very traditional, but I would say it's 50-50 for me when I get slates at the beginning or slates at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. It's something new I'd love to try. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And make sure, I mean, like, you guys should also make your slate a separate file than your audition, right? So don't do a 3-page audition and then break character and go right into your slate. Make your slate a separate file.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else got a question for Tiffany? Yeah, we've got it for another 5 minutes. She's all yours.
A lot of reps there. I'm not sure what your name is. I can't.
Sorry, who?
Oh, I think you just have to unmute.
Oh, Lori.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, Lori.
Hi. So I was just wondering, because I don't do self-tapes very often. I've never used my cell phone. I always just get someone at a studio to tape it. Do you have creative solutions? So, or maybe Michael does, for what you would accept? Say, like, we end up in this quarantine situation for a while and we live alone. So having the other voice. I know you were saying with a Zoom, you might be able to get a reader, but if we had to do it on our own, like, would you say use an app or?
I mean, you know, like if you can use are you by yourself or are you with a partner? If you're by yourself, it means hard. Then I would say, you know, like, use an app where you're recording the other side. Just make sure that the timing is very precise.
The thing is that then you get, like, you end up with really stale timing. My strong recommendation, and like it's sort of a bougie fix, but like, because you have to have 2 devices of any kind, you know, but like the device you're recording on, like, let's say you've got a laptop or a computer, you balance your phone, you know, on the computer, or you duct tape it to the computer or something, so that you're recording on one device, you know, while you've got the person reading with you on the other device. Yeah, because then if something strikes you emotionally in the middle of the scene and you take an extra 3 seconds, you don't be tied to noise talking over top of you. Like it's a pain in the butt technically, but it's worth it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? Grace and Isla, did you have another question? I saw you waving your arms up there. Is that going to go? Okay, no, you just wanted to wave. Tiffany, something that I think is always useful for folks to hear, you know, especially for those smaller roles, you know, which are, you know, at least in my understanding, often where you see unfamiliar actors. You're like, okay, it's a small role, so even if they completely drop the ball, it's only 2 lines, like, no big deal. Right? If you've got 80 submissions or 200 submissions, you know, and you're gonna, you know, choose your 5 or 6 favorites, you know, then those last 4, 5, 6 spots. Can you talk a little bit about that decision-making process so that actors can think about, you know, what could they do to help you find the things you're looking for when you're deciding?
I think it comes down to, in no particular order, a headshot that sparks my eye, especially when you're looking at thumbnails. Every kid kind of starts to look the same after a while. So an interesting headshot. Training or experience, that's when I start just going through everyone's resume. Who are they training with? How recently are they training? Are they doing short films or student films or anything to kind of be furthering their craft? Because I would say that for kid and teen actors, from what I've seen on resumes, you'll have like 50% who will have at least attended an acting class, but a solid 50% are empty resumes. Just kids who probably were told once by somebody that they had a really good look and signed with an agency and have never stepped foot in an acting class in their life. So honestly, just being in constant training puts you above, like, it probably puts you in like the 80th or 90th percentile, in my opinion. Once you're training, sorry, go ahead.
No, just because we have some adults listening in as well, you know, what would you say that it is for adults? Like, do you still see a lot of blank resumes for new folks?
Not nearly as much as for kids, but sometimes for adults. But I think in general, to kind of stand out as an adult is, you know, freshen up your headshot, or have your agent put in a submission like, you know, she just recently booked this, or she just recently was training with here. She just had this play. just something in a submission note that will kind of make you pop a little bit more than another thumbnail. And that applies for kids or for adults, really. Submission notes from your agents are a really key way for me to, I hate postcards. That's my thing, is like, I'm not crazy about postcards. I don't like getting them. I throw them out or they just get recycled. I only care about what you've been up to when you've been submitted to me for something. So have your agent say, oh, she just did this theater. She just booked this thing in a submission note. You're more likely to get in than not.
Fantastic. Now, were you going to add something else, about sort of what you look for when you're, deciding on folks? That first round?
I guess training, headshot training. I think those are the key things, really. I mean, I think sometimes and something that just shows that you're well balanced. If it's soccer or gymnastics or dance or just something that shows that acting is not the only thing that you're doing, that you're part of the chess club, or just something that makes you you. Because sometimes I think when actors are overly trained in acting and they don't have any other life experience, you get a very shallow one-note actor. And that's something that all of the networks and studios that I'm working with now are saying, we don't want that stereotypical kid actor, the one who's kind of like always on and always really, there's no depth to the acting. I think people are going for a little bit more natural, or even when we're going for comedy, there needs to be some humanity there. So I want someone who has hobbies that aren't acting related.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Aiden, did I see you've got a question there?
Yeah, Aiden.
So I've sort of received some variants on preference, and I was curious. Obviously, they're all recorded and produced separately, but is it generally preferred that if I'm auditioning for multiple roles, that I attach them all in a single large file sequentially, or that I send them all as separate files?
Separate files, for sure. The reason is, one, if we're going to send them on to the producers, then make it easy for us by just having us choose which role we want to send you for. If we want to send you for all the roles, we can just attach all the files. The second reason is, usually when I'm reviewing self-tapes, they've been downloaded for me and separated into each role. So if you're reading for the role of Zachary, I just want that role to be in one file with the rest of the Zacharys. If you're reading for Fred, I want that in a separate one. So definitely separate if you could. Also, if you guys have the option of doing multiple takes for a scene, like sometimes I'll say in my self-tape notes, feel free to send me 2 takes and I'll send whichever one is better. Please separate those into separate files as well. If you separate them into one file, you probably think you're doing me a favor, but actually it means that if there's one take that I think will sell you better than the other one, now we have to go and upload your file into iMovie and cut out the stuff we don't want to send on. So it actually saves us a lot of time if you just send them in. When in doubt, send separate files for everything. For your slate, for multiple takes, for multiple roles.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Aiden.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay. Well, that's there's half an hour exactly, Tiffany Mack.
Wow, cool. All right, thanks, guys. I'm still open if you guys have any other questions.
Does anybody have a last burning question before we all head out on whatever is next for our days? Okay. Thanks so much for making the time to join us, Tiffany. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Cool.
Let's unmute everybody so that everybody can say thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye,
Bye.
Tiffany. Bye, everyone. Close the meeting now.